now we have our thumbnails, and you want to generally have about 20 or 30 of these, not just. We're going to take a look at the next stage of the process, and that's where we do the rough drawings. And rough drawings really, I want you to think of them more as architectural drawings. So let's say we're going to take a look at this thumbnail sketch here, right, which is masking this area. And I'm thinking, it's a pretty good thumbnail sketch. Here, let's go ahead and I hit R to rotate and shift to snap. I'm going to marquee this by hitting M. And then I'm just going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to make a new layer here. And I'm going to call it RS for rough sketch. And I'm going to hide these other layers. And on rough sketch, I'm just going to move it over to the side here. Now what the rough sketch is essentially is it's a flat 2D view, almost architecturally, of what it would look like if we were looking at it head on in perspective view and not orthographic. Take a look at what that is essentially. So it's really a planning phase. So let's go ahead and just kind of mock something out like this, what our camera would look like. Now, we're not necessarily going to draw on our horizon line, but we're going to start thinking about what is it that is happening here in the side view that could build more visual interest. So we're still sketching, right? We're still kind of sketching. So here's her hat, here's her head, here's her body. Remember, we're going into a flat view. Here's her arm. Maybe she's got springs for arms here. Can't see essentially where the body of the bear is, but we know it's somewhere here, right? Because it's a painted outline. We know that there's piles of stuffing, right? Off in the distance here. But maybe above this, to help frame this shot a little bit more, there's a shelf with other toys. They're sort of witnessing what's happening, right? So we don't necessarily want it to be all character based, but we could have a wagon. And we want to start thinking about shape at this point too. She's very angular like this, right? We want to offset it or keep all of the shapes angular, right? So for example, if I want to offset her shape, I can add sort of a carriage that has a little bit of curvature to it, keeping the lines sort of pointing an arrow almost to there. A wagon, right? With a, if I want to draw attention to here, maybe there's like a little donkey character, guys. Got a long neck and a kind of a little body that sits like this. I'm still sort of sketching here, but I'm conceptualizing it. So the eyes are looking and it's helping the viewer to sort of see or think about what you're doing. Maybe up here I've got a cage toy. Inside the cage, instead of putting a bird, there's a giant elephant. Bars are bent like this. And you can also start thinking about architectural design or drafting, right? So let's give it a little bit of lip here. And here you can say, okay, well, if I want to, again, sort of offset the hardness with some curvature, I can add some curly elements like this. Fine. You can copy and paste that through. And I would actually, if I'm using this as a space to shoot off, like kind of point down there, I would actually separate it a little bit more. Give it a little bit more space so that it gives our eyes a break, and it pulls us down into that view. So again, in this phase, we're sort of looking at, we're kind of coming up with ideas on um, further refining or pushing what's going on in the drawing. So what exactly is in this area here, right? Well, maybe this is a shelf, like a closet. But we'll do it. I'm going to draw those very lightly. And giving our viewer sort of, I'm going to mask this area sort of in shadow later, but we want to kind of keep the area of the most attention with the less detail, because your eyes are sort of jarred by a lot of detail. And so it's a good way of sort of pushing the viewer or the user of your thing to get what, or asking to look at what it is. Maybe up in the shelf here, there's a little fez hat or something. Got his hand over his mouth. Body. And again, I'm using this as his body shape to kind of, his butt to point towards what we want him to look at. You could, I mean, even if you wanted to, you could be very dramatic and, you know, or oversimplify it for the viewer. Some people say you should, other people said don't insult the viewer. Not like this. Maybe this just happened and they just dragged him away. To help break it up again is, you know, throw an old cuckoo clock in here. The clock itself would be kind of more in shadow. Got these little wood pieces that come down. Clock part. And can point down this way. Again, everything sort of kind of getting to the point where you're almost insulting the viewer because everything is telling them where to look, right? From the hands to this. You don't even need this if you leave the hands in there. But I don't know, depending on the age group, I find that you kind of have to, we worked on a game, Disney's Guilty Party, and every part of the, you have to really go back in after playtesting it and say, oh, wait a second, like, aren't getting it. So we almost had to have like arrows appear and things like that. So you're making this 2D view, and you're looking at this point. You are researching. You're like, okay, well, what other cool things can I steal from other movies or genres to kind of help me really help me flesh out this idea? Like, what other toys can I look at? So this we're just building out that 2D representation of the scene.